You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It is a Friday here on the show, so that means an action-packed edition of our program. Thanks so much for tuning in. In fact, we're going to head on over to Port St. Lucie and check in with the New York Mets. First spring training games this weekend going on in both Jupiter and Arizona. Tim Healey will join us courtesy of Newsday. Also, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. And wouldn't you know, the NBA's full schedule back in full swing. So Gilbert McGregor will weigh in on everything happening in the association, including another big game for LeBron James at 40 years old last night. But naturally, everybody is buzzing about the hockey game last night. The Four Nations final was last night. And wouldn't you know, Team Canada comes out on top and in glorious fashion, 3-2 in overtime. Connor McDavid, the all-world player, arguably one of the very best of the NHL, if not the best, ended up scoring the game-winning goal, and it lived up to the billing. One of the most exciting tournaments we've ever seen, probably in the history of hockey as well, fair to say. So Canada ends up winning. They raise the trophy, as you see there. John Cooper, Connor McDavid talked about taking the trophy home for their country afterward.
Well, it was, when you come into these short tournaments, you're trying to put players in position to succeed. The first move was Braden Point's been a center all his life, and I thought putting Point with McDavid was going to help the speed factor, and it was just whether Point was going to be comfortable playing the wing, and he surely was, and he proved that. And so, Stoney was, I thought that line had great chemistry, but ultimately in the end, as that game went on, Mitch had legs tonight. And that kid can make plays, and as we saw tonight, he just needed one chance to make a play, and he did. And just, it comes down to a gut feel and how the guys are going, and I felt that those three guys could do it, and they did.
Yeah, really exciting. Just found a way. I thought that was, I thought everyone played solid. I wasn't great all night, but, we just found a way tonight.
Can you describe your feeling, Connor?
Yeah, obviously it means a lot to our group. I think a lot of people were wondering if what this tournament would mean to guys, and obviously you can see what it means to everyone on our side. It was really exciting.
As far as Team USA, they come up one game short, one overtime short. Here's Mike Sullivan, the coach, on being honored to coach them all the way through.
Yeah, they were a great group to coach. It was an incredible honor to coach these guys. There's a lot of familiarity and relationships that these guys have, from whether it's playing at the National Development Program or a lot of these guys have played together in international play, even though they might play on separate teams in the NHL. We could tell early on as a coaching staff that these guys really enjoyed being around one another, and I think that chemistry carried on to the ice. So we've talked to them from day one. I shared this with you guys that we felt one of the biggest challenges in tournaments like this is to become a team, and I thought they did an incredible job. You have to accept roles that maybe you're not accustomed to playing when you put a group of players like this together. To a man, every guy brought so much professionalism, was willing to play any sort of role to try to help the team win. Couldn't be more proud of this group. And I thought, just to be around them, you could feel how much they cared, not only about performance, but also about one another.
As far as the MVP of the Four Nations Series, it ended up being Nathan MacKinnon. He takes home the trophy. He was the most valuable player, as we now get back to the rest of the NHL season coming up next week. All right, ESPN and Major League Baseball make a joint announcement, which probably surprises a lot of people, because you're not going to see baseball on ESPN anymore after this season. Once the contract comes to a close, they have mutually agreed to opt out of the final 3 years of their deal, according to The Athletic. ESPN also released a statement saying that in making the decision, they applied the same discipline, fiscal responsibility that has built ESPN to their industry-leading live event portfolio. As they continue to grow the audience, linear, digital, and social platforms, been through the process, remain open to explore new ways to serve Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball actually released a statement before ESPN. They said that they don't believe that pay TV and ESPN's primary distribution platform is the future of video distribution or the best platform for content. Furthermore, we have not been pleased with the minimal coverage that Major League Baseball has received from ESPN. Essentially, Major League Baseball is opting out. Meanwhile, how about not playing? That's the story with Victor Wembanyama. Can you believe it? Going to miss the remainder of the season for the San Antonio Spurs with reported blood clots. Very scary situation for Wemby. We've seen this happen in sports before. Hopefully he can return healthy next season. Meanwhile, the Spurs beat the Suns without him, 120-109. De'Aaron Fox had 11 straight points in the final 3 minutes. He had 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. LeBron James is 40 years old, and he had 40 points again. The Lakers beat the Trailblazers 110-102. He had 8 straight points in the fourth quarter. Luka sat this game out. Also, Jamal Murray had 34 points. Denver has been red hot over the last month. They beat the Hornets 129-115. They have now won 9 straight games. Joker had 29 points, 17 rebounds, and 9 assists. And Giannis is back for the Bucks. He had 23 points, and Milwaukee completed a 13-point fourth quarter comeback to win. They beat the Clippers in a game that was more or less even in terms of point spread, 116-110. One of the best teams in the East keeps winning. The Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Brooklyn Nets 110-97. I believe this landed right on the number of 13. The Cavs 45-10 and 40-0 this season when they lead after 3 quarters. That's incredible. Jason Tatum, Peyton Pritchard. The Celtics beat the 76ers as 7-point favorites. They won by 20, so you know they covered there. The Knicks did not cover against the Bulls, 113-111 in overtime. Karl Anthony Towns had 32 points and 18 rebounds. Brunson had 22. And the Pacers had a 50-point second quarter, and they beat the Grizzlies by a final score of 127-113. Top 25 action in college basketball included Maryland's game last night as they beat USC by 17 points, 88-71. The Terrapins are now 21-6 on the season and 11-5 in the Big Ten. Northwestern beat Ohio State and Columbus 70-49. And LaSalle's head coach, Fran Dunphy, has decided to retire at the end of the season. The legendary coach who has spent 30 years coaching in Philadelphia, Penn, Temple, and LaSalle, 17 NCAA tournament appearances. He'll call it quits at the end of the game. All right, the first time ever we saw a challenge of balls and strikes in a Major League Baseball game in a spring training game. The pitcher was Cubs pitcher Cody Poteet, who challenged a ball strike call, and he tested the ABS. And we're going to see a lot more of this now that the games begin today. The Cubs won the game 12-4. That was the final score. 5 games across baseball today as opening day is coming up. Yankees, Rays, Dodgers, Cubs, Rangers, Royals, Rockies against Corbin Burns with his debut in the Diamondbacks, and then the Mariners take on the Padres later. Meanwhile, no more jokes about Don Mattingly on The Simpsons and those sideburns. The days of having to shave as a New York Yankee have come to an end, or at least have been relaxed. Hal Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees, said that they have decided to allow well-groomed beards effective immediately. How about that? After 50 years of Yankee baseball, 100 years of Yankee baseball. Andrew Heaney has signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pitcher signs a 1-year, $5.25 million deal as the remaining free agents are trying to get themselves ready and get into camp with opening day, now less than just about 1 month away. For those of you who want to learn more about our great programming coming up this weekend in some golf and college basketball and the NBA, get some picks against the spread, why don't you do this? Take out your phone and download the SportsGrid app. It's available for both iOS and Android. Right now, just take out the phone, and you can actually download the app. And for those of you who may be streaming us for the first time, second time, 100th time, did you know that you could do it on your phone very easily and it's free? Just download that QR code, and you got the SportsGrid app. And we'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. Coming up next, Gilbert McGregor joins us courtesy of Sporting News. We'll go over all of the latest news, notes, and information in the association after this.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, well, with the NBA back and rolling, we had a bunch of games last night to review and also look ahead to the weekend. Let's bring in Gilbert McGregor. He's getting ready to get his weekend started, just like me. Joins us courtesy of Sporting News. Gilbert, welcome back to the show. All right, so a couple of big spreads in the NBA yesterday. I believe we had a push here in this Cavs-Nets score, so let's start off there. I think the line, it may have landed right on 13, if I'm not mistaken here, but Cleveland just does what they do, which is keep rolling. They're having one of their best seasons ever. Last time we saw this, of course, with some guy named LeBron James. Beyond that, I think this is probably a historical season coming for Cleveland, Gilbert.
Absolutely. This is one of the best non-LeBron James seasons in franchise history, and they're still going. To think about the historic pace they started the season on, they've had 2 lengthy win streaks already this season. Staying atop the Eastern Conference standings, they've got something special there with their 3 All-Stars, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Evan Mobley. And they're taking care of business in the Eastern Conference, and that's what good teams do. So they'll keep looking forward. It's going to be difficult as it continues to go, but I've liked what I've seen from Cleveland.
Yeah, definitely so. And on the flip side, you have the Boston Celtics, who a lot of people can't get them out of their head, thinking that if Cleveland has to play Boston, that Boston probably would be favored, even though Cleveland's having a better season. They took care of the Philadelphia 76ers last night. I mean, I don't know when we are ready to put the dagger in the Sixers season, but I got to tell you, Gilbert, I feel like we're almost there. They're playing non-competitive basketball now. I mean, it just seems like it's completely over for them. Let's focus on the C's here for a minute. Pritchard, 28 points, 8 3-pointers yesterday.
Yeah, Peyton Pritchard got hot, and it's just a reminder of just how much of a well-oiled machine this Celtics team is. When it's not Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown that's hurting you, it's a guy like Peyton Pritchard or Derek White or Kristaps Porzingis. They have so many different ways that they can hurt you. And it's funny, we kind of talked about their ups and downs to begin the season. We used the word bored or used the word disillusioned with the regular season, and it's very clear that they were looking forward to March and April and getting the postseason run going. They look more than equipped to defend their NBA title. And like we talked about in relation to the Cavaliers, they're going to be a team that's very difficult to beat 4 times in 7 games. And I think until we see a team do it, it's hard to go against the Boston Celtics in the postseason.
I would agree. All right. So for some reason, the Chicago Bulls play the Knicks tight. And this seems to happen a lot this season. They did it again yesterday. The Knicks win in overtime. Final score is 113 to 111. I don't know that there's much of a takeaway here, except for the Bulls have their number, or nothing else for me.
You know, some teams just match up well in the NBA, especially in the course of an 82-game season. First game out of All-Star. The Knicks are still trying to get healthy, trying to get OG Anunoby back in the lineup there, anticipating the debut of Mitchell Robinson, who was recently cleared after missing the beginning of the season or the majority of the first half of the season. So one of those nights, I won't chalk it up to too much, but coming out of the All-Star break, we've seen a lot of rust from some teams coming out of that long layoff.
Do you think any of these teams beyond these first 3 have a chance to win the East, Gilbert, between Cleveland, Boston, and New York? The one team that I always mention, I think, to you and others is Milwaukee, just because Giannis is there. Do you think that that's an additional team, or does it just come down to these 3?
Milwaukee would have been my answer had it not been for Bobby Portis getting handed a 25-game suspension yesterday. Now that he will be out until the last 4 games of the season, I don't know what that means for Milwaukee and how they can stay atop or in that top 4 or top 5 in the Eastern Conference. They got a tough win last night over the Clippers, but otherwise, I'm just not sure, what the Bucks are going to be able to do. And with him coming back late in the year, I don't know if he'll be rusty or not when it's time to play in the playoffs. But again, you have Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard. You always have a chance, but will that be enough to beat a team like the Cavaliers or the Celtics? I don't know.
All right, marquee matchup tonight in the East. Now, again, got to watch the injury report here as the Knicks have a couple of banged-up players. Cleveland, 8.5-point home favorites, total of 239.5. So as we wait, Gilbert, to see if Anunoby and some others are going to suit up in this one, what do you make of this matchup?
8.5 feels like a lot, but I think it goes back to the fact that the Knicks played in overtime last night. Jalen Brunson played the least out of all their starters, and he played 38 minutes of action. Cavs took care of business last night. Both teams had to travel, but the Cavs are going to be a little more rested because their starters didn't have as big of a workload. So this is a home game for the Cavs, a more rested team. 8.5 feels like a lot, but I do side with the Cavs tonight just because of those factors working in their favor.
All right, Minnesota's on the road. They're taking on Houston. They've been fantastic all season long, and Minnesota's got a propensity for winning a lot of these tight games. The total is 216.5. Any lean on this one tonight?
Anthony Edwards somehow just sees Houston on the schedule and gets up for it. Last time these two teams played, Anthony Edwards had 41 points, and the time before that, he made a game winner against the Rockets. So looking to a big game for Anthony Edwards. Been a little bit of a rough month of February for the Rockets. Maybe the All-Star break did them some good, and maybe they'll take it a little more personally and have a game plan to shut down Anthony Edwards. But I wouldn't sleep on him having another big performance against the Rockets, although he did miss the All-Star game with a groin injury, so that's something else to keep an eye on. I'll probably lean Rockets in this one just because of the groin injury, Anthony Edwards.
All right, on the road, the Warriors playing better basketball, 3-point favorites at the Sacramento Kings, who I never can figure out. Total 235.5. Golden State clearly the better team here, but they make these spreads for a reason, Gilbert. It's only 3. What do you make of it?
I think the big thing here is, can the Warriors, the small ball lineup they've been employing with Jimmy Butler now, can they keep Domantas Sabonis off the boards? That's where the game will be decided. But I do think the Warriors are a better team. They've had some success against Sacramento this year. Specifically, Steph Curry, one of the times they played, had a pretty big game. So the way Jimmy Butler's been playing and the way Steph Curry has played off of him, Steph Curry re-energized with Butler on his side and coming off of an all-star game MVP. I like the Warriors tonight.
All right, before you go, Gilbert, the big story in the NBA today is Victor Wembanyama being out for the season. And this is multi-layered here. First and foremost, health issues prominent here with blood clots. Last time I heard this was Chris Bosh. He didn't play again after that. I mean, I hope we're not going down that road here too, but it sort of scared me because I remember covering the Heat at the time and that happening. That's the first part. Second part is he was the overwhelming favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. And this is where these new rules where you have to play a certain amount of games are going to factor in because he's not going to be eligible. So this will be the first time I think you'll have some people questioning that a little bit, saying, hey, it wasn't his fault.
Absolutely. He's been the best defender in the league by far this year and was a landslide to win the award. Obviously, hope his long-term health is the main thing that's important there. And they said that there aren't that many issues, so that's good to hear. Names I keep an eye on are Jaren Jackson Jr., Lou Dort, and Evan Mobley for Defensive Player of the Year, but we'll see how it plays out.
All right, Gilbert, thanks again for coming on the show. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Same to you.
All right, Sports Grid Sound Off coming up next. Don't go away. I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. We're going to talk some baseball here on the show as we get closer to opening day. And, of course, we will talk a little automated ball system. We're going to be challenging this during the season. It's going to be fun to see. Maybe in 2026. Not this season, but they're trying it out in spring training. Also, Juan Soto weighs in on being a Met. Jackson Holliday weighs in on his season upcoming. Time now for the Sports Grid Sound Off. All right, so pitchers and catchers report. They have their first few workouts, and then Juan Soto meets with the media. First time ever as being a member of the New York Mets, is getting ready to play his first spring game. I'm assuming that's going to happen this weekend as well. It was the big story of baseball's offseason, trying to predict where he would end up. Would it be in Los Angeles? Would it be in the Bronx? Would it be in Queens? That's where it was. Here's Soto on being a Met.
Comfortable or more settled to be like, all right, this is where I am. Does that make a difference to you?
I mean, this is where I am right now.
Where you gonna
where to go? You know, it's but it's a place that you're learning. It's kind of weird because you're still, after all these 3 years changing teams and here and there. It's kind of like a different vibe. Like, it's unbelievable. I don't believe it yet. I'm still in between. I'm still learning and seeing, and actually seeing that spot. Like, oh, this is actually where it's gonna be for the next 15 years. You know, but it's part of it. I think I'm still learning to see how I feel comfortable and everything, but it's been fun.
One of the new wrinkles for Soto and everybody else is being able to challenge balls and strikes. And we saw that for the first time in a spring game yesterday when the Cubs took on the Dodgers. We're going to see it a lot more, I'm assuming, coming up this weekend. Manager of the Giants, Bob Melvin, discussed, after being in baseball for decades and decades, what it'll be like going into the season.
I'm going to let it play out to start, and then we'll see how it goes. I mean, spring training games, you know, I have no familiarity with it. I look at the walk rates in AAA and the walk rates at the big leagues. It's a lot different when guys come up, and when they go to AAA, they walk more guys. So I'm sure the system has something to do with that. But, you know, I haven't been a part of it. I'm going to feel it out first, and if guys are, you know, ridiculous with it, then we'll probably put some parameters on it. But I'm certainly not going to. Lamont Wade says challenges. I'm not going to have a problem with that. No matter when it is.
That's one of the minor leaguers told me when big leaguers came down to rehab and like got the first inning or whatever, they'd use up all the challenges right away.
Yeah, there's got to be some feel to it. I'm not going to go out and say pitchers are poor evaluators of their performance, but I could see where you get in a situation and you're trying to get out of an inning or something like that you might go overboard with the challenge. But
person said we're too emotional.
Yeah,
everything's a strike.
There you go. He said it, not me.
All right, fair enough. Bob Melvin. Meanwhile, let's go on over to Sarasota, Florida, where the Baltimore Orioles have their spring training. A lot of expectations in year one for Jackson Holliday. It may have fallen short just a little bit, but a new year brings new optimism. Here's Holliday on some of the adjustments that he's made going into the 2025 campaign.
Yeah, just continue to work on some adjustments to my swing and to get stronger and to try to improve in every aspect of my game. That's kind of something that I've focused on ever since I've gotten drafted, and I feel like I'm in a really good spot.
What were some of those swing adjustments that you've made and been working on over the offseason?
Yeah, just kind of more of a toe tap, kind of something that I worked on towards the end of the year and had some success with, and just building off that because it's something that new and trying to take into a game. So it's been good in the lab at bats so far, and I'm just looking forward to continuing to build off that.
Obviously, with the new head of hitting coaches in Cody Ashe, what do you think he can help you moving forward, and what has he done in the past?
Yeah, I got to work with Ashe ever since I got drafted. He was the coordinator whenever I was drafted, so I've been with him for a while now, and we have a great relationship, and Sherm as well. I was with him in AA, and then getting to know Tommy has been great, so I'm really looking forward to working with the staff this year.
All right. Meanwhile, one big injury being reported in Major League Baseball. Evan Grant, who covers the Texas Rangers, reports that young star Wyatt Langford has an oblique strain and going to be shut down from baseball activities for a week. Manager Bruce Bochy says he will be ready for opening day, but a significant injury to young superstar, at least budding superstar in Major League Baseball. So we'll have more on that tomorrow on our next edition of Fantasy Sports Today. You can catch me and George Kurtz Saturday morning from 8 to 10 Eastern, and then catch Joe Pizzapia and Matt Stryker on Sunday morning from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. Coming up next, we're joined by Pat Evans of Legal Sports Report. We hit on the latest sports betting topics in Texas and a whole lot more. So stay with us here on SportsGrid as we return after these quick messages. Don't forget, Smarter Be on SportsGrid. We'll be right back. I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Flood a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
We are so fortunate to have Pat Evans back with us for a three-peat here on NewsWire this week. I don't even have to pay for that, by the way. Pat Riley's not going to come calling for me. I didn't make a T-shirt or anything like that. But Pat is back with us from Legal Sports Report. And Pat, more topics to go over today, I guess.
I mean, it's unbelievable how many topics I can bring in during a week.
You
And
really
thankfully, you get a relief from me on Monday when Sam comes back. So you're lucky. And tonight, hopefully, I get a good weekend with a Michigan State win over Michigan. But we'll see how that goes tonight.
A big Friday college basketball game. I kind of like that. Usually Saturday is reserved for that. But all right. So I wish we had better news to start off with here, but we are just telling you how it is. Texas sports betting bill. We're going to find out pretty soon if this is going to go one way or the other. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we're making much progress here.
No, and then it's not totally surprising. I mean, I know I've been coming on here a lot this year talking about all the momentum that's been building, but all that's been with that caveat of, in the Senate, you have Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick saying it's very unlikely that he'll bring sports betting to a vote. And that's because, in general, it's not a majority Republican-supported bill. It needs the bipartisanship. It is Republican-sponsored, but, he is the stopgap there. Even though Governor Greg Abbott has come out and said he won't be in the way of it. So that's kind of there. What did happen, though, is kind of the House makeup changed. And if you remember, in 2023, a online sports betting bill did pass the House with its 100 votes that was needed for 2/3 majority in the House, which it needs in both chambers because it's a constitutional amendment, which then goes to a public vote. And this year, you've got two bills, including one for online sports betting, one for casino destination resorts and sports betting, both introduced by Republican representatives. So that's, a good sign for starters. It'll get started moving. But for those who think it can kind of take the same path and pass as it did in the House in 2023, a little bit of a problem. There's 26 new representatives that are Republicans, many of which are against sports betting and gambling expansion, which puts that 100 vote milestone kind of in limbo. And of course, you'd have to pass the House to get to that Senate because there isn't a Republican Senate sponsor for sports betting yet. So Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick still is saying, you know what, we don't have the Republican support in the Senate.
Right.
It's a no-go. And the biggest quote in a Dallas Morning News story recently kind of outlining this was from a representative, Matt Shaheen, and he said, "I have a whole coalition of organizations, and we're going to make sure it's dead. It's 6 feet under. It's not going to pass the House." So if you've got a rep that dug in against it, it doesn't look great. I mean, even though you've got lots of organizations in the state fighting for it, lots of money in from the sports teams and owners and casino magnate Miriam Adelson, again, lots of momentum going, but because of that one big problem in the Senate and the majority of the Texas GOP being against gambling expansion, Texas looks like another year of long shots, and it will likely be waiting until 2027. But again, you never know. Anything can happen. That's why these sessions are in progress.
Yeah, you never know until the vote comes in. All right, so, what I find fascinating is some of the new responsible gaming ads, Pat, are really focused more around accepting the fact that people and younger people are going to bet on sports, which I don't know that we would have guessed these kind of ads would have been around 5 years ago. But I think we've come to the foregone conclusion that it's going to happen. And so over at this website, knowyourplay.org, that's the new responsible gambling website that they have up, it seems to just simply focus on younger people who are betting and making sure they just understand what their limits should be. And that's, a pivot from where we were several years ago, where people just said, don't bet if you can. Now it's like, all right, if you are, just be careful, right?
Yeah, I mean, when this started, in 2018, the big wave of legalization, it was important to note the importance of regulation. We talk about that all the time, about bringing it into the light, making sure consumer protections are there. And I think this is the next step, and it is because we are seeing lots of headwinds. We've talked about the U.S. congressional hearings, the U.S. bills that are being considered to put nationwide frameworks in this. We've seen a lot of action at the state level talking about responsible gambling being more important, more advertising restrictions and the like. Well, the Responsible Online Gaming Association, which is made up of 9 of the operators in the sports betting industry, including FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, they've put out this Know Your Play campaign. It's, to your point, focused at college age demographics, not necessarily college students. It's just that age of demographics, which people often say is the riskiest demographic when you're getting into sports betting and gambling. And it is all about kind of teaching them just the things you laid out, know your limits, know the mental health aspects of this and how it can become a problem, things like that. And it is a lot of online resources, but they are going to do in-person seminars and workshops on college campuses. They said they're also going to have pilot programs at a few special, certain colleges to do this. And I think this is just another step from all these operators who, at times it might have felt sometimes, I'm not saying it is. I know a lot of the people at these organizations and they do care about responsible gambling and worrying about addiction and the like. But a lot of times it could have felt, and for people who are against the industry might feel, it's a lot of lip service about responsible gambling. But I think this is another big step in the right direction of saying, hey, no, we really want to take proactive steps in helping make sure this doesn't become a big societal problem. Because we know the importance of having a regulated industry and we don't want it to become a bad problem in the country.
Yeah, no doubt. Makes sense. All right. March Madness is coming here, and it looks like 2 teams from Alabama here, Pat, are maybe going to be 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. My gosh, the state of Alabama is missing a nice opportunity here to bet on sports, and it doesn't look like that's coming anytime soon.
No, it doesn't. And, I think to your point, that could be something that the lawmakers in Alabama might say, hey, wait a second, look at this. This is incredible. We've got our football teams that are great. We've got, these basketball teams that are great this year. What can we do? But coming into this session, we knew last year a bill got through the House to legalize sports betting, casino gaming, and a lottery. It's one of 5 states without a lottery. And it fell on deaf ears in the Senate. It completely stripped and then fell apart in a conference committee. And that's kind of an interesting note because the House, built their bill on a bill that had passed in previous years in the Senate. And so this year coming in, the House kind of threw their hands up in the air and said, it needs to start in the Senate. This week, Senator Greg Albritton, who's kind of been the champion of this issue of late in the Senate the last couple of years, said, I can't even introduce or won't introduce legislation because I know I'm at least a vote or two short of potential passage in Alabama. And that's just kind of been how it's been in Alabama. You know, you've got these chambers that are just kind of a tug of war situation, not sure what they want to do. We've talked, you know, over the last couple of years about kind of just the block of conservative voters in the Southeast that are very anti-gambling. And I think that's very true in Alabama. But I do think, to your point, maybe having both college football and college basketball being a big thing in that state now, maybe they do say, hey, this is something our Alabamians want, and that is something we've seen in polls. Why don't we go ahead and do that? So we'll see. And then, you know, I just want to throw this in because before coming on, I saw a bill pop up in our bill tracker that, you know, earlier this week, we talked about Vermont lawmakers introducing a bill to repeal sports betting.
Yeah.
We just saw a bill of similar vein pop up in Maryland. So, wow, you know, we talked about it potentially becoming a, you know, trend, and there you have it. We've got a second state already with introduction of repealing sports betting.
Wow. I mean, Maryland, I mean, that's a significant state. I mean, I don't want to go dig in on Vermont again. I was already going to get people mad there. But in Maryland, that's a big state for all sports. And, you know, certainly some of the biggest teams, the Orioles, the Ravens, and, you know, right next to D.C. Boy, we'll keep an eye on that. Maybe we'll talk about that next week, Pat. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the basketball tonight, and we will wish your Spartans good luck. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. Talk to you soon.
Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report with us. All right, coming after the break, we got some last licks. Dallas Cowboys going to be searching for a new offensive lineman. Tom Brady gives an expensive gift, and so does Juan Soto. That's next. I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, back to spring training we go. The New York Mets getting ready to play the first spring training games of the season this weekend. Let's check in with Tim Healey of Newsday, who's been very busy, been a very busy offseason, very busy spring training, owners showing up, a lot of stuff going on. So let's check in with Tim. Hey, Tim, great to have you here on NewsWire. How are you?
I'm excellent, thanks. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No, it's I know that it's a very busy time of the year, certainly, and I know that. Look, I mean, we can just kind of go back a few months ago as you're sort of covering the Mets on a day-to-day basis. You never really know how things are going to go, and then they go in the way of Juan Soto, and it completely changes everything going into the offseason and the regular season. But thus far, it seems like all systems go. He seems like he's in good spirits and dealing with you guys pretty well too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been several days of Juan Soto being in camp, several days into his $750 million contract. So I'm glad he's in good spirits. So far, so good on that front. He is different than anything the Mets have had in recent years. Obviously, by far the biggest contract anybody's ever had, but just in terms of star power and fan excitement and pull and things like that, bigger than when Lindor came on board, bigger than when future Hall of Famer Max Scherzer signed on a short-term contract. Spring training-wise, crowds-wise, Juan Soto's arrival last weekend was as close as the Mets have had to a phenomenon since the Tim Tebow days, which obviously falls into a different category, but speaks to how much excitement there is from fans around Juan Soto.
Yeah, there was, and I want to get to some of the comments that the owner Steve Cohen made in a minute. But as we take a look back before we look forward, even further rewind. I mean, the Mets did win 89 games last season without Juan Soto. Certainly they're behind the Braves. Very close. They had the same record going into this season, 89 wins, but behind the Phillies at 93, and then Washington and Miami at the bottom. Most people feel Washington will be better, and Miami could potentially be a little bit better, but not going to win that division. I don't think that is in the cards there. So expectations were set by the owner. You rarely hear this, Tim, where he basically was asked what would the expectations be, and he said anything less than the playoffs would be a failure. And I think that's established, obviously. But I found it interesting, and at least he put it out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the Mets are at now. They made the playoffs last year, snuck in on the last day of the regular season. Added Juan Soto, added a bunch of other guys. So, yeah, the floor is winning a wild card spot and getting into the playoffs and then seeing what happens in October. The Mets are capable of doing more than that. They hope to do more than that, but anything short of making the playoffs would just be a complete failure for a team that has a payroll now of $325 million, up above 300 for the third year in a row, I believe, for Steve Cohen's Mets. So it's a very expensive team. They probably won't be as good record-wise as their payroll would suggest. But this team not making the playoffs would just be a complete embarrassment, to be honest.
Yeah, and a completely different season with expectations going into last year. It wouldn't have been playoffs or bust, but this year it is. So, the one, I think, area maybe of concern would be the Mets already having an injury in the pitching department, but Sean Manaea is back, and Senga will be at full health going into this season, it would appear. And then, we have David Peterson, Clay Holmes, and Paul Blackburn. When I look at that, I see 5 innings, 5 innings, 5 innings. So my guess is, Tim, you have the Mets have two starters that could go deep into games, and then the rest of it is sort of piecing it together, unless I'm missing something.
Pretty much, yeah. The bullpen, as you mentioned at the outset there, is the biggest hole, biggest question mark, biggest area of concern roster-wise for the Mets, because you have Senga, who's healthy for now. He's only ever healthy until he's not. So we'll see what he is after missing virtually the entire season last year. Sean Manaea is back on a 3-year, $75 million contract. But is he going to be able to repeat the best year of his career? We'll find out. And then there's David Peterson, who took a big leap forward last year. Is he going to regress a little bit? Maybe. And then Clay Holmes converting from his longtime bullpen role. Paul Blackburn sort of is what he is at this point in his career. And then Griffin Canning, who's probably going to round out that 6-man rotation, is another Blackburn type of guy. So the Mets are missing Frankie Montas for what's sounding like at least the first quarter of the season, maybe more. But there are not a whole lot of certainties in that rotation right now.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, then, if you looked at the offense, you had a lot of regression last year with McNeil and maybe Nimmo a little bit. and even Starling Marte to a degree. So I suppose, Tim, as we close it out, the Mets are going to be optimistic that the players that underperformed a little bit last year, and they still won 89 games, maybe come back to what their normal seasons are.
Yes, that's definitely the hope. The Mets could have a wrecking ball of a lineup. McNeil should have a better year. Francisco Alvarez should take a step forward. Starling Marte, we'll see what he is as like a part-time DH at this point. And then the flip side of that is Mark Vientos for real? Is he going to be able to do that again? Pete Alonso should be, bouncing back, have a better season than he had last year. But Francisco Lindor was second in MVP voting. Is he going to be able to pull that off again? So the Mets will have their ebbs and flows as far as individual hitting seasons go. We'll see where it shakes out, but I like their chances to score a lot of runs.
Yeah, and it'll be a fun season to watch, Tim, for sure. All right, enjoy the spring training games. You're fine. You got there, Tim. You made it. You made it through those first PFPs in 2 weeks. You got games to cover finally, and then before you know it, we'll have a season to begin, 162 ahead. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire. I really appreciate it.
It's going to be a great time. Thank you very much.
All right, Tim Healey, who I've known for a long time, back in his days when he did have a cup of coffee covering the Marlins in Miami too, but he's moved on covering the Mets there as well. All right, as I mentioned, tons of spring training action this weekend. We have it covered for you here on SportsGrid. In addition, don't forget to catch Fantasy Sports Today with fantasy baseball previews Saturday morning and Sunday morning. Our shows are underway. Me and George Kurtz on Saturday, Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker on Sunday. We'll be back with more NewsWire on SportsGrid after these quick messages, so stay with us here on the grid. Spring training baseball underway in Florida and Arizona. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this. I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I think it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. It's time now for some last licks, where we'll discuss a couple of topics in the National Football League. Yes, football still is a year-round sport. And we'll also find out what Juan Soto had to do to get his number 22. Time now for some last licks. All right, well, let's start off with a football story. And, honestly, we saved this for the end of the show. I mean, we're kind of moved on from football a little bit, but we do want to mention this player here. I mean, Zach Martin, one of the great offensive linemen over the last 10 years in the National Football League. It is really just a shame that the Cowboys were not able to win anything with him. But Zach Martin decided to retire. Was this that big a surprise? I mean, he was banged up, I think, last year and missed some games. And it just goes to show you how anonymous offensive linemen can potentially be. But he was certainly great with the Dallas Cowboys. And as soon as he is eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the idea is he'll probably get in, although the Pro Football Hall of Fame is a little weird. Like, you never know who's going to get in at any time. Needless to say, it's not Zach Martin's fault that the Cowboys haven't won squat. It certainly goes to show you that two things. Not all the time when you have a great offensive lineman do you win. And also the fact that the Dallas Cowboys have had such a hard time winning games, but have such an easy time finding amazing offensive linemen like Larry Allen and Zach Martin and many others. They do a great job in that category, now having to replace them next season. So good luck, Dak. Good luck, Cowboys, trying to get that done. All right, Tom Brady, you may remember during the Super Bowl, wore a watch that was like $1 million. Okay, well, yeah, maybe it wasn't $1 million. Maybe I'm being a little facetious, exaggerating a little bit, but it was worth like $800,000. I think that was the case. So wasn't it strange that this popped up on YouTube, that Tom Brady's son went on there and did a stream just like me, doing a stream with you, except for, as you can see here, I'm not wearing a watch here and not wearing a watch here. Okay, you can see my arms. Okay, there you go. Yeah, his son had a $300,000 watch that he wore, and he, by the way, kind of flaunted it a little bit on YouTube as well. I find that a little weird. Oh, $3 million? It was $3 million, not $300,000. So his watch was worth more than the one that his dad wore. How does that equate? Anyway, look, Tom Brady, let's keep it real, has endless amounts of money. But the one thing that you got to be careful for, and I'm a dad too, is sort of showboating your kids, because nobody wants to be on the other side, being that parent looking at that kid saying, look what he's got. Creates jealousy, creates issues, but I'm glad to see that his kid, who I believe is not 21 years old, has a $3 million. I thought it was $300,000. $3 million watch. Good show prep by me today, needless to say. All right, finally, Juan Soto is so particular about this number 22. I have some incredible stories, which I cannot tell on the air. But he really, really likes that number 22. So when he ended up going to the New York Mets, he had to buy the number from Brett Beatty, who plays on the Mets, younger player. He's not Juan Soto. So what he ended up doing is getting him a tricked-out Chevy Tahoe, and he debuted it a couple of days ago at spring training. And so here it is. You can see this tricked-out Chevy Tahoe. Also, here is Brett Beatty on making the number for truck exchange.
Well, so I've been driving, honestly, Mark's been giving me a hard time about it, but I've been driving the car I drove in high school around for my whole career. And I come into spring training every single year, and I'm like, I'm going to get a new car. And then Mark's always like, me and Edgar talk about it too. Me, Mark, and Edgar are always like, what are you going to get? And I'm always like, probably something spacious, probably like a Tahoe or something like that. So Edgar kind of knew already. And then it was kind of fishy too. Edgar, he asked me for my car insurance yesterday. I was like, that's a little strange. So I figured something was coming, but I didn't expect that at all. That was amazing.
That's really cool. Good job by Juan Soto there. These guys are just so particular about their numbers. So, but good job by Soto. I guess that's a few $100,000, probably that car if it's all tricked out. All right, that'll do it for our week of shows here, folks. A great week considering we had no football, no NBA, no NHL. One of the more quiet weeks in sports we've had since August. So pretty great job, I would say, by our producer Frank and our director Luke this week. Great job, guys. Coming up next, we got Smiley Kaufman, followed by Pharrell Coast to Coast, 3 o'clock Eastern. And that will be followed by Game Time Decisions tonight. They'll have you covered on the Michigan State game and college hoops, then in-game live game day, and then Gabe, who was up all night tweeting until 5 in the morning on Sports Rage tonight. As soon as I wake up, it's nothing on my social media timeline except Gabe. Thanks again to Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. And, of course, thanks again to, Gilbert McGregor for coming on the show and Tim Healey as well. I'm Craig Mish. I'll see you tomorrow on Fantasy Sports Today at 8 a.m., or I'll see you Monday morning for our next edition of NewsWire. Have a great weekend.